Namaste and good evening to all. Now we will start our this third session of our this today's this course of heritage of interior design of India. तो हमारे इस कोर्स के आज के तीसरे सत्र की हम यहाँ शुरुआत करते हैं। मैं सुचिता कामत मैडम से विनती करता हूँ कि कृपया आज के अपने सेशन की शुरुआत करें।
Yes, sir. Good evening, everybody. Good evening, sir.
Yeah, good evening.
Just a minute. Yeah, so today in day 3, we are going to study the following topics. Vastu Shastra, story of the birth of Vastu Purush and mythology around him, Vastu Purush Mandala and other related deities, placement of some rooms. Vastu relates to the effects of light spectrum and magnetic field, descriptions of mythological cities and palaces. So, Vastu Shastra. To begin with this topic, let us first see who the Vastu Purush is. So, the story of the birth of Vastu Purush. The story of the birth of Vastu Purush is mentioned in the Matsya Puran. The demon Andhakasura had created a lot of trouble for the rishis and was killing many of them. Lord Shiva fought this demon. The war went on for many years. The tired Shiva started sweating. As the drops of sweat fell on the soil, a cruel looking, horrifying child was born from it. Uh, He drank all of Andhakasura's blood and killed him. But his hunger could not be appeased. He grew at an alarming speed, consuming all that he came across, eating all living beings and destroying nature. The elements of nature were disturbed by this act of the growing demonic child, as he had by then covered almost the entire earth's surface. This was disturbing even to the gods watching from heaven, and they went to Lord Brahma for help because they were insecure that after eating everything on the earth, he would attack the heavens. So then, what Brahma did, Lord Brahma fought the demon and beat him. Then Brahma ordered 45 gods to sit on him, pinning him down to the ground. And of these 45, Brahma is also included. Brahma himself occupied the central position. The demon was positioned in a square such that he faces down with his head in the northeast direction and legs towards the southwest direction. It is believed that even today he is lying in the same position and is present in every vastu, in every plot. The demon begged mercy of Brahma, who declared that then onwards he would be known as the Vastu Purush, Vastu Nara, or Vastu Devta, and that he would bless with happiness and peace those who offer him prayers. Lord Brahma commanded that all buildings be constructed in a manner such that both the presiding deities and the Vastu Purush are happy and comfortable. Further, if the people fail, then the Vastu Purush was given the authority to curse and trouble them. Hearing this, the Vastupurush happily agreed to obey Brahma and stay in the assigned position because now he got that superiority and he was in this very awkward and very uncomfortable position facing down. So, why would he otherwise agree? So, like he was given this advantage and given this superior position, so he was quite happy with it and he agreed. Vastu Shastra is a part of Shilpa Shastra. The living space of devtas and human beings is known as Vastu, consisting of the Bhumi, Prasada, Yan, and Sayan. Land used for building of residence and for walking is Bhumi. Compound walls, buildings, and other structures within comprise the Prasada. So, with this diagram, I have shown Bhumi is the yellow color circle, and the Prasada, Yana, and Sayana are located on it. So, the compound wall buildings and other structures within comprise the Prasada. The vehicles like rathas, vimanas, navkas, etc. parked on the bhumi are known as the yanas. Other objects like bed, table, cupboards, chairs, sofa, etc. So all the furniture and other aspects are collectively called sayana. Since for all the other aspects, bhumi is the resting place, it is considered as the vastu, that is matter. Bhumi with other three aspects is known as Vastu. So when the other aspects add to Bhumi, then it becomes the Vastu because then it becomes complete and it is livable or it is usable. Otherwise, it is just a Vastu. And so the rules and guidelines are termed as Vastu Shastra. So because these are the principles and rules, they are, and it is a science, so it is termed as Vastu Shastra. Vastu Shilpa is divided into Dev Shilpa, deals in aspects of temples and religious activities like idol, yagya, yagya kunda, etc. Manav Shilpa, which deals in aspects of human activities like residential buildings, workplaces, etc. The Vastu Purush Mandala. Since Vastu means the environment, nature or matter which is in existence, and Purusha means the energy, vigor or soul. A mandala means an astrological chart, which is a mandal is a Sanskrit word. Mandalam is a geometric configuration of the symbol. So the Vastu Mandal is a geometric configuration. It's like a diagram with a rep representation of the symbols. The Vastu Purush Mandala is a square is a square in shape. More precisely, it is a grid. Since it has various deities, it has positioning of the various deities in smaller squares. So uh, it is a grid. In various spiritual traditions, mandalas are beneficial for helping in focusing attention, to provide spiritual guidance, for creation of a consecrated space, and as an aid to meditation in a person. It represents deities and incorporates their ambience, thus it is auspicious. So since it all relates, it all deals with the energies and all the various aspects of nature are given symbolically representation of deities. So it helps in bringing in positiveness in a person, and then the Vastu Vidhan states that the Vastu Purush Mandala is a yantra, which is a diagram, and the Rupa, diagrammatic representation of the Vastu Purush. It is also stated that those with appropriate knowledge of the Sharira, that is the body of the Vastu Purush, and his Sharira Yantra, bodily device, can attain best results in construction. So, if the person has a knowledge, proper knowledge of all the aspects, then the construction will be the best, and like the results achieved will be the best. The Vastu Purush is confined in the Vastu Mandala and is drawn in the 64 squares of the mandala. If you count these, it is a total of 64. The image of a man with his head to the northeast, legs to the southwest, his right hand is placed in the southeast and his left hand in the northwest directions respectively. There are 45 deities in all who preside over the mandalas, even if the grid of the mandala increases or decreases. Brahma, who is the creator of the universe, occupies the central position. The Brahmastan is important as it is associated with Brahma the Supreme, because of whom the entire universe is in motion. Brahma's law causes the fire to burn, the sun to shine, Indra to cause rain and thunder, Vayu the lord of breath, and Yama the lord of death all perform their assigned duties. All this is attributed and because of Lord Brahma's laws. His form does not exist within the range of human vision, and we cannot see him. The Brahmastan is considered the nucleus of or center of any Vastu of the mandala. It usually occupies 4 squares in the Manduka mandala. Manduka is a mandala with 64 squares. 9 squares are occupied by the Brahmastan in the Paramasayika mandala, which has 81 squares in all. The Brahmastan radiates energy towards the other padas or the squares. So individual squares are known as the padas. The 12 Adityas, which are the forms of the sun, are the inner deities. So surrounding the Brahmastan are the other deities, that is surrounding Brahma are the 12 Adityas. These Adityas surround the Brahmastan. They are placed according to the time and the role of each of them. The 12 Adityas. The various Adityas who were the sons of Aditi and Rishi Kashyap are as follows. Indra, the king of the gods and destroyer of the enemy. Hata, the creator of all things. Parajanya resides in the clouds and showers rains. Vastra, the one who dwells in all worldly forms. Pushyan, the one who offers nourishment to all beings. Aryaman, who brings sacrifices to a successful conclusion. Vamana, a giver of delights and gifts. Vivaswan, the one who ensures digestion. Vishnu, the one who manifests himself as the destructor of enemies of gods. Anshuman protects and preserves all vital organs. Varuna, he resides in the ocean and repairs the universe. Mitra, he dwells in the sphere of the moon for the benefit of the three worlds. During the Vedic period, the Adityas were considered the rulers and the guardians of the direction. But then later what happened? The concept of the Ashtadikpalas developed during the post-Vedic period. The Ashtadikpalas, the eight Ashtadikpalas. Ashtadikpalas are the gods of eight directions. Ashta means eight, Dik means direction, and Palaka means guardian. Hence, Ashtadikpalas are the gods who rule the eight directions. Below are the details of the eight directions and the Dikpalas. So, according to each direction, the Dikpala is assigned, and these are the directions in which they are believed to exist. East, which is known as Purva, is of Indra. West, Paschim by Varun. North, Uttar, Kubera. South, Dakshin, Yama. Southeast, Agni. Southwest, Nairuta. Northwest, Vayavya, Vayu. Northeast, Ishan. Indra is considered as the god of the east direction. His Vahan is Airavat, a white elephant who is symbol of royal strength. Varuna is the god of west direction. His Vahan is Makara, a crocodile-like creature. Kuber is the god of north direction. The Vahan of Kuber is Nara or man, while some sources mention a goat as the Vahan of Kuber. Yama, the god of death, is regarded as the god of the south. So he's regarded the god of the south direction. His Vahan is a buffalo. Agni is the god of southeast direction. A ram, which is a male sheep, is regarded as the Vahan of Agni. Nairuta is the goddess of the southwest direction. Her Vahan is an owl or a crow. Vayu is the god of the northwest direction. A deer is the Vahan of Vayu. Ishan is the god of the northeast and has Rishabha, which is a bull, as his Vahan. The four principal Dikpalas, Kuber, who is to the north, Yama, occupying the south, Indra to the east, and Varun to the west, are also known as Lokpalas. So, since these are the principal of the Ashtadikpalas, and they preside over, and they have a significant and important role in the lives of the people, they are also known as Lokpalas. They are the guardians of the cardinal directions. There are 32 divinities residing on the border and 13 divinities inside the Vastu Mandala grid. So, if we add these up, 13 and 32 gives 45. So, each division of the mandala is called a pada, having a presiding deity associated with it. Marmasthanas. The Sanskrit word marma means a vital part of the body, a weak or a vulnerable point, any joint of a limb. And joints are the weak sections. Even in furniture, the more the number of joints, the weaker the structure will become. So the same applies here. So marmasthan thus means sensitive and vital part, a part weak or vulnerable point. There are certain sensitive parts of the body of the Vastu Purush or sensitive points in any house and are called as Mahamarmasthanas, Marmasthana, and Upamarmasthana. So, like if you look at this diagram, the Mahamarmasthanas are given with, marked with the red circles, and these are the intersecting points of the diagonals and or the diagonal and the grids. So Marmasthan, these are denoted by the green squares, and Upamarmasthan are the green circles. And the various deities are given according to their position. Here. The Vastu Purush Mandal is a diagrammatic representation of the energy current flows in the subtle body of a human being. As seen from the point of view of metaphysics, metaphysics is a branch of philosophy that includes abstract concepts like time, space, identity. The 9 points where these lines intersect each other are called the Marmasthanas. These points are on and around the Brahmasthana. These points are on and around the Brahmasthana of the house. And the central is the Brahmasthana. Importance of Marmasthanas. The Vastu Purush Mandala is a diagrammatic representation of the subtle energy flow in the human body. It has 6 distinct sensitive points known as the Shanmahanti. These Marmasthanas are derived by lines connecting 12 deities that reside on the Vastu Purush Mandala. These points are on and around the Brahmasthan of the house. They are following actually the diagram I could not put in here, but these go along this diagonal. The Shir, which is the head, the Mukha, which is the mouth, Hriday, heart, Nabhi, navel. So all these are the various parts of the Vastu Purush. Vamasthana, left side of the chest of the Vastu Purusha. Dakshin Sthan, right side of the chest of the Vastu Purush. All of these are very sensitive points in Vastu Purush Mandala and are directly related to health problems. Disturbance or damage to the Marmasthanas. These 6 sensitive areas in the Vastu Purush Mandala are important to the house. These lines connect the space occupied by a house with the whole world for fulfilling desires. Being powerful, they should not be covered by any beams or columns. So this is an ideal condition where they initially, when Vastu Shastra was followed properly, all the rules were followed, and all the specifications were meticulously followed. So they saw to it that these structures did not disturb the Marmasthanas. If done, the energies at these areas get blocked and affect the health of the house owner adversely, depending on the Marmasthana which has been blocked. Any action by way of construction or lifestyle inside the house that directly or indirectly punctures these intersections creates negative fields. Sometimes a heavy object kept on the Marmasthan or the floor drilled to make modifications in the house will affect it. This means so that way the Marmasthan gets disturbed. And this means sudden ill effects on the occupants of the house. It is believed that the owner suffers, and especially the owner, because Vastu Shastra, it is uh, it acts according to the basically it is connected with the with astrology also. So it acts according to the astrological chart of the owner. So that is why it is specified that the owner gets affected because of all these disturbances to the marmasthanas. This means the sudden ill effects on the occupants of the house. It is believed that the owner suffers health problems in that particular limb of his own body related to the type of the marmasthan which has been blocked by the structure. It is for this reason that no column or beam should be constructed over any of these points. Harnessing the positive energies related to a particular direction is the chief objective of the principle of house construction as per Vastu Shastra for the well-being of the occupants. The Vastu Purush must be worshipped during three phases of any construction work. They are at the beginning of the at the time of the commencement of the work, beginning of laying the foundation, at the time of the Griha Pravesh. And here I would like to add one more point that in ancient times, when new settlements, there were specifications for the number of people living in any settlement, and if an overcrowding was not advisable, so what they would do, they would start building after finding a suitable location, a new settlement, like a new village or a new township. So what would be done, that all the houses would be constructed according to certain specific charts and various diagrams. And first the houses would be constructed, then after uh, the required yajnas or the whatever the offerings to the gods, only then all the people at the same time on some particular muhurat, they would enter the settlements. And it was not that a single house first and then people came in and settled and then the rest of the township slowly developed. It was all planned properly. Application of Vastu Shastra in present times. Over a period, we no more practice Vastu Shastra the way it was in ancient times. So the knowledge, methods, and its applications have lost their importance. The construction is not done in accordance with Vastu Shastra. So this is like while constructing any building, the Vastu Shastra is generally now not taken in consideration. And structures are built and then we follow the rules of Vastu. So that does have its disadvantages, and thus it may not be possible for us to change the structure of the house and commercial establishments. But we can make use of some principles to make them Vastu compliant to a certain degree. One can make use of interior designing to help incorporate the Vastu Shastra principles. This can help if you are living in a rented apartment or are living in a house which has not been built by keeping Vastu Shastra in mind. It is possible to bring in positive energy into one's home by evoking the elements that govern the interior space according to Vastu Shastra. This is done by changing the color scheme and adding symbols of the Vastu Devtas in the right position. The principle of orientation of buildings, which includes commercial, non-commercial buildings, and also temples, are all related to the Vastu Purush Mandala. Since the Earth's surface is considered to be marked by the movement of the sun, so as the sun rises and the sun sets, the rays of the sun play an important role. Also, the cardinal directions have a vital role. The Vastu Purush and the Vastu Purush Mandala are very important. The cardinal directions played a prominent role in the lives of ancient people, as during those times the sun was the main source of energy. All work related with sunrise, or all work started with sunrise and was finished before sunset. The ancient rishis, who were great scientists, prescribed the construction of all buildings so that maximum sunlight entered for getting maximum benefits of the solar energy and the light spectrum. The Ishanya, that is divine, and the Agneya, fire related, are important directions according to ultraviolet and the infrared radiations of the visible light spectrum. This is the prime reason for the stress on preference of the entrances to the east. Because with the rising sun, the energy gets activated, it enters the houses. So it is prescribed that the entrance should be to the east. So, like after opening the door, the rays of the sun enter, and with it, the energy also enters. And both secular and religious buildings were planned considering the cardinal directions. Our rishis not only had knowledge of the light spectrum but also knew about its usefulness. The important cardinal directions and their effects according to Vastu Shastra. North is the Matrusthana, and the daughters of the house will be affected by it. Keeping more open space in the north is good for the women of the house. But if this direction is covered, it will have a negative impact on health and the lives of the women of the house. South represents finances and peace. The southern part of the house ideally must be higher than the rest, and very little space must be left open in this direction. East is the Pitrusthan, and maximum open space should be left here. If the east is kept covered, then it is believed it will result in lesser male children. So that is a belief, an old belief. West represents fame, development, and progress. The western part of the house also must be higher and with very little open space. Northeast represents honor, children, prosperity, and health. Keeping the northeast low and with more open space results in good health, increase in wealth, and the progress in the lives of the children. If the northeast is closed, then it is believed that it will bring misfortune to the male child. The northwest is significant of work, business, mental health, and friendship. If this part is closed, it will create tension, financial loss, and enmity. Southeast represents health. The kitchen must be designed here. The southwest signifies longevity and character. So for it, it is connected with the lifespan and the character of the individuals residing. If this area is left free and is lower than the rest of the Vastu, it will bring problems related to moral conduct and lifespan of the occupants. The recommended shape for a plot is either square or rectangle. Moreover, it is important that the southwest corner angle to be at 90 degrees. Sides facing to the north or the east are considered best. It is good to have roads on all four sides of that particular plot or that particular Vastu, as such a location has a desired energy flow and is considered good, imparting all round happiness. So the energy flow continues, it is energy is not stagnated, and so that affects the people living in that Vastu. The Vastu Shastra stresses on the importance of a compound wall. There are Vastu flaws due to external reasons which are prevented by construction of a compound wall. So because of the compound wall, the energy, the negative energies coming in get disrupted, and they do not affect the people living in. That is the belief. Now, placement of some rooms. Living room. The northeast is suitable for the living room with entry to the east or the northeast. Loads in the center of the living room must be avoided. So the central portion of the living room should have, if there is furniture, it should be something light. There shouldn't be any heavy uh, furniture or anything heavy kept in the center of the living room. Dining room. The western position is the most suitable for the dining room or the dining area, kitchen. The kitchen should be in the southeast corner of the house. If this location is not possible, then northwest or the southwest locations are good. But it is forbidden to have the kitchen in the northeast corner, northeast side. E- Either should, sorry, but it is forbidden to have the kitchen in the northeast. Neither should the stove be lit facing the north or the south. So the platform should be in such a way that the person who's working in the kitchen will not face the north or the south direction while lighting the stove. The puja room should not be next to the toilet or bathroom. Apart from this, any location in the house is good for the puja room. Only care should be taken not to have a platform or any heavy structure in the northeast corner of the puja room or where the mandir is placed in a room in the northeast of the house. Bedrooms. For a bedroom to be comfortable, it must have enough air circulation. This is offered best in the southern region as the wind flow is directed from south to north. So the bedrooms must be in the southern side of the house. It is best to place the bed in the center of the room. If not, then it should be touching the south or west walls with the occupant's head not towards the north. So the person sleeping should not have his or her head to the north. Vastu relates to effects of light spectrum and the magnetic field. Thousands of years ago, our ancient Indian sages were able to differentiate many natural phenomena scientifically and accurately. According to them, the visible spectrum has distinctive names with specific directions being besides color corresponding to Vibgyor. So Vibgyor is the colors of the rainbow: violet, indigo, blue, green, yellow, orange, and red. The seven colors of the white light. So all if white light is split, it is passed through a glass prism. The light will be split into the individual of these colored spectrums. So the white light comprises of these seven different colored lights. As per Vastu Shastra, the Vedic deities corresponding to these are Parjanya, Kashyap, Mahendra, Surya, Satya, Risha, and Nabha, having references to the energy of the sun, are represented by these deities. Like the sun, the Earth's magnetic field also yields significant influence on the well-being of the inmates of the house, according to its placement. The founders of Vastu Shastra were aware of, sorry, the founders of Vastu Shastra were aware of the influence of the Earth's magnetic field affecting how the house is constructed and on the inmates. So, the effect of the Earth's magnetic field and the various energies which had uh, on the inmates living in that particular Vastu. It follows certain scientific laws. For example, it is recommended that the inmates of a house sleep with their head towards the south. The human body acts as a magnet with the head as the north pole. So if we consider the human body acting as a north pole while sleeping, the head of the human body as the north pole, the head is directed to the north, the earth's north pole, and the head of the sleeping person, which is acting as a north pole of the body, repel each other because like poles repel. So that will cause problems in the body fluids and and it will cause a problem in the blood circulation, which will be affected, causing tension and disturbed sleep. And it's like said that gives a heavy head. Bathrooms are best if made in the southeast, northwest, south, or in the west direction. It is good to have the water drained out in the northeast direction. Construction of toilets can be made in the southeast, southwest, northwest, south, or the west, but never to the east in the house. Furniture placement in the room. It is recommended that all heavy furniture should be along the southern or the western walls. Some general guidelines. So how we can improve the uh, energy flow of a house or of any vasu, even an office. Plant bright and colorful flower-bearing plants in the north to attract wealth. This could be done in the garden if you have one, or by placing potted plants in the balcony or on the windows in the north direction. Remove dead plants, or this will bring negative energy in the house. Because like the dead plants, that creates a little gloomy atmosphere, and it also obstructs the light which enters. So that will cause gloom in the house, and it will not be pleasant. If it is not possible to place pots in the balcony or in windows, many housing societies do not give permission these days for keeping pots in the balconies, and because like the water drain causes the soil to take up the color of the uh, spoil the paint of the exterior paint of the building. So most of the societies nowadays don't permit it. You can keep indoor plants. Avoid having tall trees or heavy objects to the northeast. These are believed to repel positive energy as they block sunlight. Do not buy any adjacent property to the southwest of your existing property. It is said to stop progress. So, this is according to the ancient beliefs. Now, we come to description of mythological cities and palaces. A brief description of Ayodhya and the palaces of the city. In the city, the kingdom of Koshala was situated on the banks of the river Saryu, and Ayodhya was its capital city. The city of Ayodhya was 3 kosas, approximately, which comes to approximately 11.52 kilometers in width, and 7.5 kosas, approximately 28.8 kilometers in length. It was a prosperous city established on the river plains by Manu. The city had many beautiful arches and artistic gateways, which added to its beauty. The streets were wide and beautified by the residents. The wonderful aspect of life in ancient times was that the citizens felt equally responsible as the authorities, and so they would maintain the portion of the street running parallel to their property. So, like they would keep it clean. They would even water the streets which were along their property, and all the roads this way were kept clean. Like, there was nothing like the authorities will take care. Why I should bother? No, it's like if everyone cooperates and everyone takes the initiative, all the cities can be clean. Like even villages, not the cities, all settlements will stay clean if each of us becomes responsible. There were markets at regular intervals. Here, traders and sellers would come from near and far. There were innumerable castles, which were called prasadas, and gardens everywhere, indicating that people in general were rich. According to Valmiki's description, these castles, which he mentions as vimanas, were beautifully decorated from the inside as well as on the exterior. The word vimana has two interpretations. The first being an aeroplane, and the other being a multi-storied building having 7 or more floors. Thus, we can understand that the mansion and castles in the city of Ayodhya during the time of Ram were constructed with advanced architectural knowledge, and the work was executed by a highly skilled workforce. So, to build such tall structures, the workforce had to be very efficient, and the rules must should have been followed properly, and everything was done very precisely, very accurately. Living in the present era, we may not believe this, but indeed the science of building construction was highly developed in ancient India. Such vimanas must have been at least 70 feet in height, considering each floor to be 10 feet. So they must have been at least minimum, I'm saying, considering what we have. Now the floors are not even 10 feet. each floor the height is reduced. So in those days it was much higher, because like if you have noticed the older buildings, the floors are more than 10 feet high. All these were load bearing structures and not RCC, which is reinforced cement concrete. So it was just a load bearing structure, and it had to be really done properly. The base, the foundation, and the base was done very well. So there were lots of pillars in these structures. In Ayodhya Kand of the Ramayana, there are descriptions of palaces of King Dashratha, Ram, Kaikeyi, Kausalya. These were the largest and grand and magnificent buildings. We can imagine the grandeur and the architectural marvel of this period, as many people living in the kingdom lived in high-rise vimanas. So not just the royal family, but other people also owned vimanas. We can say the palaces were much more magnificent, larger and very stately buildings. Generally, all buildings were white in color. The Ayodhya Kand describes the scene of pre-coronation events of Ram. The king offered, so these are some of the examples which are mentioned. The king offered Ram the best, splendid, and lofty seat decorated with gold and gems. The great sage Vashishta went to the palace of Ram. It was like a mass of white glittering clouds. He entered the home after crossing the first three sections traveling in a chariot. So the premises of the palace was so big that there were roads and there were crossroads within it, and the people had to travel in chariots. Rather, they traveled in chariots. The priest, seeing that the highway was thronged with men and women who were standing on both sides, slowly went and reached the palace and climbed the steps of the royal palace, which was like the peak of Kailash. King Dashrath entered his private apartment, which resembles the palace of Indra. So these are some tiny extracts which describe how the palaces were. It's not in a sequence, but from various places this is taken, so that we get an idea of how the palaces were or how certain parts of the palaces were, because we do not have their actual images. So this helps, that is how the literature helps in understanding these other artistic ways of and how things were in ancient times. On the temple tower, surrounded by white clouds in four road junctions. So the temple towers were that high that even the clouds surrounded them. In four road junctions, that is at the crossroads, thoroughfares, and on tall monuments, towers of forts, shops of merchants selling various goods, on prosperous and great houses, all public halls, and all, on tall trees, banners of various colors were hung. Here, sorry, here you can see there are flags, there are banners, and this is a gateway here, and they're riding through the in a chariot and along the street, and a lot of people are standing. This is a model showcasing Ayodhya, which is at Jain Temple, Ajmer in Rajasthan. Now, continuing further with Ayodhya, in case the coronation may prolong till night, trees full of lamps were provided all over the city. Dasharath entered his inner apartment, which resembled heaven. It was filled with parrots and peacocks, echoed with the sound of swans and kinnara birds, filled with music, for music from musical instruments, blessed with champak, ashok trees, and the houses of creepers, picture galleries with stages decorated by gold, silver, and ivory, filled with trees yielding fruits and flowers and fruits daily, water tanks decorated by gold, silver, and ivory, excellent seats, and with expensive decoration. So the trees are also like they were taken good care of, and they yielded flowers and fruits according to the season, and there was plenty of everything. From the above descriptions, as written by Valmiki, the palaces of the royal families of Ayodhya were very big, well maintained, and well decorated. The palace of Dashrath was so high that it has been compared with Mount Kailash, the abode of Lord Shiva. When Ram visited his father's palace, it is mentioned that he rides in his chariot inside the premises, passing through three crossroads, and alights from his chariot and walks down two more crossroads to reach inside the main building. So, this is as a mark of respect to his father. He walks down the next two. So, like we saw before in his palace, when Vasishtha Rishi and goes, he travels in the chariot, and similarly, Ram also has traveled in Dasharath's palace on his chariot, but then he alights and he walks ahead. Since Ram was a Yuvraj, sorry, I missed out something. When Ram visits his father's palace, it is mentioned that he rides in his chariot inside the premises, passing through three crossroads and alights from his chariot and walks down two more crossroads to reach inside the main building. For a chariot to travel comfortably, on the paths, which were flanked by subsidiary buildings, they must have been many feet wide. The streets must have been really quite wide. At least two chariots can travel in opposite directions. Since Ram was a Yuvraj, his palace too was extensive. That too had three crossroads inside it, as is observed from the description given while sage Vashishta visits it to instruct Ram about the religious rites to perform before the coronation ceremony. There are not too many references of the interior design of the palaces, but from whatever we read, if we try to understand, it is clear that the designing and the furniture must have been very lavish. So these are two more images. And then we go to the description of the golden Lanka and the palace of Ravan as seen by Hanuman. According to Hindu mythology, when Ravan was invited for the Griha Pravesh ritual of Lord Shiva and Parvati's abode, which was a golden palace designed by Lord Vishwakarma, he was awestruck by the beauty of their home. After the sacred ceremony, Shiva told Ravan to ask for whatever he desired as Dakshina. Ravan, mesmerized by the beauty of the palace, was so beautiful that he asked for the golden palace itself. Shiva was obliged to accept Ravan's wish because it was a dakshina to be given. So Shiva was obliged to give him what he asked for, and so the golden Lanka became Ravan's abode. Hanuman, who was endowed with great powers, could assume any desired form. He went in search of Sita and roamed the city of Lanka. This was indeed a splendid city, abound with wealth and great security, as observed by Hanuman. So, as Hanumanji was traveling in the air and searching for Sita, so he saw the entire city, and the description given what from what he has seen. The city was fortified with a deep moat teeming with huge fishes, poisonous snakes, and gigantic crocodiles. There were four strong wooden gates for passage into and out of Lanka. The walls were equipped with mechanism for catapulting huge boulders and spears at an approaching enemy. So the fortified city was so designed that it could withstand attacks. There were broad roads leading from the gates to the top of the fortification walls. There were numerous Rakshasas above each gateway guarding the entrance. The city was beautified with fascinating gardens, sports complexes, recreation areas. All these added to the magnificence of this majestic city. So the fortification wall was also so broad that many people could stand and like guarded properly, and there were roads on it also. The houses of the residents were beautifully decorated to such an extent that the windows had grills of gold, the pillars were of gold studded with gems set in exquisite patterns. Hanuman moved about freely from one house to another of the Rakshasas and over parks, observing in all directions. Moving about in those beautiful buildings, he saw the wealth of the Rakshasas, who were rich. Hanuman passed everyone's house near the palace of Ravan. Admiring this amazing sight, Hanuman reached Ravan's palace. As he neared, he saw the palace shone with the golden hue of the sun. It was surrounded by a massive compound wall. As we have earlier seen, the king's palace was always the most beautiful building of any kingdom, and so was the temple inside it. The house itself was huge. Hanuman surveyed the building protected by horrible Rakshasas. It was like a fort protected by lions. Here he saw a variety of army divisions and a standing army of the Rakshasas having different weapons raised up ready for attack. Such was the security of the palace of the Asura king Ravan. It was so extensive that at the entrance a map was put up to direct newcomers inside the palace, without the help of which one would get lost inside it. Ravan's house consisted of surprising archways decorated with silver and gold, strange entrances, and beautiful doors. Ravan's house waited upon by men on elephants, so there were people, the guards, and there were other people coming to visit him, and the the riders were sitting waiting on elephants, warriors, drivers of elephants, by undefe- by undefeatable horses and by chariots. It had protective shields made of lion and tiger skins, decorated with ivory, gold, and silver. He saw Ravan's Viman filled with a lot of diamonds, having valuable seats and exquisite artifacts added to the majesty. Filled all around with various kinds of animals and birds in thousands, they were lovely and extremely beautiful, added more beauty to the palace. These sculptures of grand birds cast out in silver, corals, and Vaidurya, which is lapis lazuli. There were statues of huge serpents and horses made from various materials. These figures looked real if one did not observe them carefully. After all, this was created by the excellent master of illusions, Mayasura. Ravana's palace was tastefully decorated, well protected by well-trained Rakshasas who protected the inner area, also filled all over by beautiful, respectable women, having happy women, the abode of Ravan, with the tinkling from the best jewels and roaring laughter sounded like a murmuring ocean. Resonated by the mridangam, sounded by the sound of conch shells, the palace was exceptionally beautiful. The great Hanuman saw the wealthy Ravan's huge palace. With a roof studded with great diamonds, Hanuman thought it to be the jewel of Lanka. It was shining with its form filled with elephants, horses, chariots, happy people, and beautiful decorations in gold and jewels. The floor of one of the rooms was covered with a carpet having the world map. It was probably Ravan's ambition to conquer the world, and in this haughtiness, in this uh, vanity, he would walk over the carpet. More is said about this carpet. It had a beautiful divine fragrance. When Hanuman entered Ravan's bedroom, he saw a raised platform accessed by a staircase above which were two beds made from gold. One had white canopy, while the other, which probably was his wife Mandodari's, had more ornamental, decorated with pearls and various types of precious stones. It had an air of feminine tastefulness and beauty. So this is about the second board. There were palanquins of various shapes, wonderful private apartments, art galleries, and other pleasure houses, which were wooden structures, were imitations of mountains, a pleasure house for delights, and also there was a beautiful urinal house. Hanuman saw the best among the buildings. It looked like the houses of house of Kuber filled with many diamonds and precious stones, and also heaps of riches. The building shone by the rays of diamonds and a testimony of the splendor of Ravan. Because it had so many diamonds, it was shining. Dwarka of Sri Krishna. Among the many mystical, mythical towns Lord Vishwakarma built is Dwarka, the capital of Lord Sri Krishna. There are stories that also claim it was built overnight. The description of Krishna's Dwarka when sage Narad visited it, this is as given in the Srimad Bhagavatam. As one entered the city, one would hear the chirping of joyful birds and the buzzing of bees flying about the parks and pleasure gardens, while its lakes crowded with blooming blue lotuses, Indivara, Amboja, and Utpala. These are the blue lotuses, uh, their varieties. White lotuses, Kahava, Kahavara, white water lilies, which blossom at moonrise, known as Kumuda. These ponds resounded with the calls of the swans and the cranes. Dwarka is believed to have numerous royal palaces, all constructed with crystals and silver and splendidly decorated with huge emeralds. The marble floors had emerald inlay work. The flooring had beautiful designing done with the inlay work. The marble was carved and the emeralds were laid in this pattern. Inside these palaces, the furniture too was decorated with gold and jewels. There were rich gold decorations everywhere. This reminds us of the decorated pillars of Chandragupta Maurya, which we studied on the first day. And pillars of Chandragupta Maurya's palace, which we studied on the first day. Carts and chariots moved along a well laid out system of boulevards, roads, and crossroads. There was discipline in the numerous marketplaces. Though there were many people, yet the people followed rules and there was discipline everywhere. Assembly houses and temples were found in the charming city. The roads, courtyards, commercial streets, and the residential courts were all sparkled with were all sprinkled with water and shaded from the sun's heat by silk banners waving from flagpoles. The god of arts and architecture, Vishwakarma, had shown all his divine skill in the city of Dwarka. In it, he designed a beautiful, large private residence like area for Krishna. It was charmingly ornamented by palaces of Krishna's 16,000 queens. Narada Muni entered one of these immense palaces. So all the palaces were huge, and Narad Muni entered one of the palaces, and he saw that at the an enchanting sight was in front of him. Supporting the palace were coral pillars, decoratively inlaid with lapis lazuli, known as Vaiduriya gems. The walls were decorated with sapphires, like used to make beautiful patterns, and the floors shone brilliantly. In the palace, Twastra, that is Vishwakarma, had arranged canopies with streamers of pearls. There were also seats and beds designed having carvings of ivory and precious jewels. In attendance were many well-dressed maidservants and guards in fine uniforms. The numerous jewel-studded lamps added a brilliant glow in the palace. On ornate ridges of the roof danced peacocks, crying loudly, who saw the fragrant aloe wood, which is aguru, incense smoke escaping through the holes of the gold-screened windows. They screamed with joy as they mistook it for a cloud. So seeing that smoke come out, they thought clouds were gathering and it was going to rain. So they were dancing with joy. Dwarka was built for the safety of the inhabitants of Mathura. After the death of Kansa, the king of Mathura had been the city of Mathura had been attacked 13 times by his father-in-law Jarasandha, who wanted to take revenge for the killing. Krishna decided to shift the inhabitants to a safer location. Dwarka was a fortified city and had been thoughtfully built on an island which was safe from enemy attacks. So after facing 13 attacks, it was good to be in such a place which was safe and secure. Indraprastha, uh, sir,
Yes,
sir,
yes,
can I continue with this?
yes, yes.
Yeah, thank you. And sorry for the delay again. When the Pandavas returned to Hastinapur with Draupadi, Dhritarashtra, knowing the return of his nephews would not be welcomed by his sons, ordered them to build a city for themselves where the harsh forest of Pandavaprastha stood. This was originally the capital city of the Pandava kings. It had been destroyed by Munis and now a forest had grown there. Vishwakarma was appointed the Stapati, that is the architect for this work, and the construction began as instructed by Krishna. The necessary measures were taken. A deep moat was dug surrounded by uh, surrounding this demarcated area. So first the markings were done and then the moat was done. On completion, Indraprastha glowed white, surrounded by the waters of the moat. It looked like the pleasant moon rising from the placid ocean. It surely must have been a spectacular sight. Its entrance gate was compared with the outstretched wings of Garuda, the mighty eagle. So the gate was so enormous that it looked like the outstretched wings, Garuda with his outstretched wings. This metaphoric description, as given by the Mahabharata, indicates that the gateway was enormous and sturdy. So it was strong. It was not just ornamental, but it was huge and it was strong. Being splendid, Indraprastha had elaborate safety provisions. When Pandavas came to Khandavaprastha to build their kingdom, Takshaka the Nag king ruled the Khandavaprastha and Kurukshetra. While Krishna and Arjun were examining the new place, they found out that since Takshaka was ruling the place, it was infested by dangerous snakes. He being the Nag king, so his subjects were also snakes and dense forest, so was unfit for human settlement. In order to clear the land from snakes, Arjun challenged Takshaka, but he refused. Arjun got angry and started burning the whole forest with Agniastra, that is weapon of fire. So Takshaka had to run away. Takshak went to another place and built the capital of his new kingdom known as Takshashila. At that time, Mayasura was living in Khandov-Prastha forest as Takshaka was his friend. When the forest lit on fire, Maya ran out. Krishna aimed his chakra at him, but Maya fell at the feet of Arjun and sought protection. Arjun stopped Krishna from attacking and saved Maya. As a sign of gratitude, Maya gave a magical, powerful club with the power of 100,000 clubs. The club is a gada to Bhima and a conch, Devadatta, to Arjun. Also showing his gratitude toward Yudhishthir, Maya built the Maya Sabha, a hall of illusions, for, for Yudhishthira's Rajasuya Yagya. Mayasura built the fabulous Maya Sabha, unparalleled in design and beauty, unheard about. When the Pandavas saw it, they were awestruck. It had such unheard of mechanism that one could not resist the temptation of inspecting it repeatedly. It had swirling doors, decorated halls, forms embedded with precious gems. The walls would change color and patterns. The floors would glow brilliantly, giving them the appearance of a pond and ponds that deceive one's vision to seem to be solid ground. The pillars were made of gold, walls were colorfully decorated with jewels. It was built to create illusions of all seasons in one room. Some of the walls were transparent and some of the windows gave an illusion of being opened, but they were merely reflecting the outside walled into onto their surface. There were colorful rangolis on the water surface. The palace was surrounded with well maintained forests with brilliant, fragrant flowers. The Pandavas were now happy and satisfied that what they had got from their uncle Dhritarashtra was much more than what they had imagined, because the difficult terrain which given they were given as their share had been transformed into paradise and were particularly delighted about the Maya Sabha because it was so fascinating and so different. It was a unique place. So they were very happy to have it as their belonging, which was named in honor of its maker Mayasura. Mayasura got the material of the Maya Sabha from an auspicious place called Bindusara near the Hiranya Shrunga mountain. The Hiranya Shrunga mountain was to the north of Kailash mountain. At this place, Prajapati had performed many yajnas, and the divine material, like gold pillars decorated with beads and a lot of other gold and crystals, were lying there. Most of this material was taken by Mayasura while constructing the Mayasabha because Mayasura knew about this place and he knew what is lying over there. The, the special of these were the crystals. These crystals were used to create illusionary doors. The Maya Sabha covered a very large area. The fortifications and the gates were studded with excellent quality gems. There was beautiful landscaping done with ornamental trees, water fountains, and orchards were planted. It was indeed a magical creation with excellent designing, creating a lot of illusions. The Pandavas were overjoyed and decided to invite their cousins, the Kauravas, to visit the palace for the Rajasuya Yagya, and the Kauravas, out of their curiosity to see the majestic residence of their rival cousins, promptly accepted the invitation. While entering the magical palace of Indraprastha, Duryodhan was amazed by its beauty on one hand and confused by the trickery of the design. Since the material used included crystals, such fake doors were created which deceived. The Duryodhan tried to walk through one such door and in the bargain banged his head on the crystal. What appeared to be a wall turned out to be doorways, and the doorways where he proudly tried to step in, he banged into solid walls. He was so confused by it all that he could not make out where to set foot. He stumbled and bumped everywhere. At another place, the floor tiles used were made from crystal, which created an illusion of water. Walking over one such place, Duryodhan lifted his garments so that he does not get wet. At another place where there was an artificial pond filled with water, and as a result of his experience of the crystal flooring, he confidently stepped in and landed in the water. Watching Duryodhan's antics, the queen of Indraprastha, Draupadi, could not control her laughter and burst out laughing. When she saw Duryodhan, thinking it to be solid ground, set foot into a pool of water and fell, becoming all wet. And that is the way we can say the beginning of the Mahabharata. Come to the end of today's presentation. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Here are few questions
Yes, sir.
by Parag Milvanki sir. Yes, Parag ji, you want to ask something, and then Vikram ji. Parag Milvanki sir.
Good evening, madam. Thank you for the very extensive and nice presentation. I have one question on the principles of Vastu as per Indian texts. So, does this principles hold good only for our country or for also the northern hemisphere like China, which has their own method like Feng Shui, or the
Yes.
polar regions, North Pole, South Pole? Is it different there?
Yeah, it is. See, it is like especially for the North Pole because the northern hemisphere is the most. It has the most landmass, so everything we can consider it for, especially for this region.
Okay.
It's more populated in the north. So,
Okay.
Yeah,
What
Vikram
about
ji.
the
Yes. Okay, Parag sir. Yeah, continue.
It's all right. So the principles in North, especially the China, which has Himalayas on the south, we have sea on the south. So and Himalayas on the north. Is it different? Like, the rules are not according to the grid which you mentioned. Is it
yeah.
opposite or different?
So this is according to the wind direction. And see, like since you mentioned about the Himalayas block
Yes.
the cold winds for us. But for them, then how the sea acts, the wind again will move back and it will hit the mountains because they're so high, and it will move back because like cold winds, they travel at lower heights. So then the same principle should apply then.
Yes, Vikram sir,
Yeah,
yeah.
is it fine?
Vikram Bharadwaj ji.
I think I'll try to think over it, because still I'm thinking. And second thing is I'm thinking on the gravitational forces and the rotation of the Earth in terms of Vastu, how it correlate. I'm thinking on these terms.
Namaskar, ma'am. Namaskar, sir. I have a few questions. The very
Yes.
first one is regarding Vastu Dosha.
Yeah.
Whether all the buildings which were constructed in the ancient time, whether they were following the procedure of Vastu Shastra, or they were constructing without this particular knowledge. And if there is some Vastu Dosha in any particular temple or any particular structure, how to sort it out? This is the first one. The second, I want to
1 minute, Vikram ji, 1 minute. One by one, please ask questions one by one so that we can answer clearly and properly. Please.
sorry, sir. Sorry.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. The first
Yeah.
question answer. Yeah.
The place all had everything was according to Vastu Shastra, because like if you see the ancient the diagrams of the
But
ancient cities,
particularly religious buildings and the palaces are the big
palaces.
buildings. Not we can say for the all the domestic or all the small buildings also, because it's not possible for all. So we can say that. And if there are the vastu doshas, then they can change it. Otherwise पहले उसका क्लेरिफिकेशन या कारण क्या दिया है ये समझकर उसमें जो है निवारण करना वो पॉसिबल होता था, वो लोग करते थे एज पर अकॉर्डिंग टू द वास्तुशास्त्र दे चेंज इट आल्सो. ऐसा
और
चेंज
कैसा है
किया
कि
है रेफरेंस.
the construction also that was done beginning like knowing the principles, because see the timing also was considered, the commencement of the work was also considered. The Raj Purohit also would be appointed, or even other Purohits for the other people also they would appoint it. Like these rules applied for most of the people, because like things were aligned and everything was very systematically done. Even the fortified cities, they were planned. Like when we studied about the palaces, we studied that the palace according to Arthashastra, 1/9 of the total area was occupied by the palace, and that was positioned like, you know, if you read the Arthashastra, it has so much detail about all these factors, especially in that, like the references are the best, like how things are very precisely given. If you could read that, it will help a lot.
Ma'am, my second question is, you mentioned about Lanka, and you were talking about Hanuman saw the best structures there. At the same time, you were talking about carpet and all further minute details. Where are these references, ma'am? From where we can get the details of these people? Where are they? Whether they are Ramayana or somewhere
It is
else?
from many books. Like you know, I have to read a lot of references, and many extracts which I have given are from various books. So like after reading all that, the matter collected, I have like presented in this way.
But we request to you that please provide us the reference list at last,
Yes, sir.
so that
Yes,
we
sir,
can
sure.
also refer it for the
Yes,
further
sir, yes.
studies.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
please.
And my last question is, you mentioned that Mayasura created Maya Palace. It was created for Pandavas in Khandavras. At that time, it looks like that the Asuras were also that much skillful in the construction work as for
Yeah.
the Aryans were.
Yes, yes, because you know that part actually yesterday, due to lack of time, and I couldn't complete that section. But Mayasura was he was also a very famous architect, and he was blessed by Lord Brahma. So Brahma ji had given him the blessing, and he also had, like Vishwakarma. Mayasura also had a lot of skills. The Mayamat is believed to be written by him. Even like this Surya Siddhanta, it is believed that Surya Dev himself had narrated the Surya Siddhanta to Mayasura.
Okay.
Here one more thing just I want to add. कई बार ऐसा होता है, लोगों को ऐसा लगता है जो अभी कमेंट जो आपने किया कि वो ब्रह्मा से उन्हें वरदान प्राप्त था, तो the person who get the more and more skills, तो वो कहते हैं ना कि इसको शारदा का जो है वो वरद हस्त इसके ऊपर है. सो लाइक दैट आल्सो, तो इसे ठीक से समझ लीजिए, नहीं तो फिर इस सेंटेंस से जो है और भी कंट्रोवर्सीज खड़े हो सकते हैं. सो फॉर
Yes,
ऑल द स्कॉलर्स,
dedication and sir, dedication also.
यस, जो है वरदान पाना या फिर कलाकार जो है, और ट्रेडिशनली प्रैक्टिसेस एंड प्रैक्टिसेस बिकॉज ऑफ द
Yes.
गेट द मोर स्किल.
So
यस,
that
अभी
was the
यहाँ
sadhana. The
यस,
practice is like everything was their sadhana. They worked and they did better. So that is like how we consider that meditation. Like there are certain aspects which are taken in a little religious point of view, but if we consider from technical aspect, the more a person practices, the better he performs.
Ma'am, one
That
more,
way.
please. One more.
Yes, sir.
You were saying that when Mayasura created all this structure, crystals were used and different materials was used. That gives a clear-cut indication that during that particular time, first of all, we knew multiple dimensions.
Yes.
First of all, we were knowing first one dimension, second dimension, third dimension, and even n dimension. We were creating something which were in multiple dimensions, and at the same time, we knew a lot in metallurgy. As well as further, we knew the depth knowledge of the crystals also.
Yes, yes.
Later on.
Yeah. And like we say, the mythological aspect, like basically mythology, Indian mythology is history. And for making it simple for the people, it is the stories are put in so that stories like why stories are incorporated, because that helps people to remember certain things. Like if the knowledge is given as a book, as a textbook, as study material, people will not remember. Study means most of the people like get a little uncomfortable. So like stories,
if we just see ये रचना कब हुई है, ये लिटरेचर जिस समय में बना है, चाहे वो कोई पुराण हो, का उपनिषद हो या जो भी है, तो ये जिस समय में इसकी रचना हुई है, एज पर अभी मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट के हिसाब से मैं बोलता हूँ, द ओल्डेस्ट मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट जो हमें प्राप्त होते हैं, दो इट इज ऑफ 6th सेंचुरी 7th 8th सेंचुरी वगैरह जो भी है, या हमारे इसमें, तो ये वर्णन उस समय के उन लोगों ने किए हैं. इसका मतलब दे हैव द नॉलेज ऑफ दिस ऑल, इस सब का नॉलेज उनके पास था, वो रखते थे, और अब हम उसको पढ़ रहे हैं, बट हम उसको आज के हिसाब से हमारे कंपैरिजन कर रहे हैं. अब हो सकता है उसी मटेरियल को वो हमसे ज्यादा भी जानते हो, यूज करना भी ज्यादा, हमारा उसका यूज कम हो गया है, इसलिए हमें ऐसा लगता है कि हमारे पास नॉलेज नहीं है, बट वो समय के हिसाब से और यूजिंग के हिसाब से नॉलेज जो है हमारे मस्तिष्क में होना वो कम ज्यादा होता रहेगा.
थैंक यू सर, थैंक यू मैम, नमस्कार, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद आपका.
मोस्ट वेलकम. यहाँ अभी कई सारे सवाल है. हाँ, वर्षाली मैडम, यस प्लीज.
Yeah. First of all, ma'am, thank you very much for this wonderful virtual tour of Sri Lanka and all the places. I was just glued to the today, and I couldn't make out 1 hour over. I would like to hear about the gumboots of the sun from yesterday's session, and and second thing is, what is the difference between Varuna and Vayu? We have two directions. One is of Varuna and another is Vayu. So how can we differentiate it?
Varuna, Vayu is the air, and Varuna is related to water. So that is the sea, actually. Because like Varuna, sorry.
West side we take it as air, no? Varuna, Vayu.
No, they're two different. Okay. Yeah. Some confusion I feel.
Now, yes, here, Divya madam, you want to ask something? Divya ji.
Yes sir, thank you. Suchita ma'am, thank you so much for a very wonderful presentation.
Most welcome.
I have one question related to the cities of Ayodhya, Indraprastha, and even Lanka. I want to know, is there any mention of the measurements of the common people's houses other than the palaces,
a lot, because like in one of the sessions I have a list of the measurements. So right now I would not like to discuss all that, but there are precise, means like we like when I was in school we were taught that the measurements must have varied considering the anthropometry of individuals. Some people are short and tall, but it's not that way. The basic measurement was a grain of this sesame seed, that is the till, that was taken as the basic, and like there was and see, in those times, agriculture also was very pure and clean. So all over, I feel, in my opinion, the material must have been precise, and like the measurements also mustn't have varied, like how we have the different quality gradations. In those days, everything was the best quality, so it must have been uniform. So these measurements, I'll be discussing this surely in one of the sessions.
Oh, okay. In future
Yeah.
sessions, I'll be
Yeah,
looking
yeah,
forward
yes,
to that.
yes.
Thank you.
Yes,
I
yes,
asked
yes.
why because I particularly wanted to know the length of the buildings. That means how tall it was, because we have this Yuga system in our Sanatana Dharma, where it says that in Treta Yuga, this Ramayana was done, and in those times, actually, people were about 7 feet or
Yes,
8
yes,
feet,
yes.
right? Especially,
Yeah.
I don't know if commonly everybody in Treta Yuga were 7 feet, or it was just the description of Sri Ram who was 7 feet.
No, it
That
was.
I am not sure,
It
but
must
that
have
was the
been.
basis why I
Yeah.
asked you the question.
No, and it must have been uniform because see, it's the quality of food which matters. So in those days, because everything, there was no adulterated food, everything was pure and everything was good, and there was surplus, abundance everywhere. So our nation has always been known as a very rich and very caring people. So it was like everyone had everything in the right quantities.
The same thing which is mentioned about the Buddha's height also, Mahavira's or the Rishabhnatha height also in Jain Agama and the Buddhist literature also. So 7 feet height जो है 7 point somewhere 7.43 feet height up to, it's also mentioned. Now I request Shailesh Atreya ji. Yes, if you
Thank
want,
you.
most welcome. Shailesh Atreya ji, Shailesh Atreya ji. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am, for the presentation. Now,
Welcome, sir.
the question I have is, on one slide you mentioned that according to Vastu, you should be sleeping with your head towards the south.
Yeah.
Correct?
Actually, yeah.
Now-
And are you asking about the east-west position?
No, I am asking pertaining to Sushruta Samhita, which says that east is the direction where you should keep your head.
Yes,
And
yes,
if you
yes.
have your tamas dosh, which is especially your vata dosh, in that circumstance you should sleep with your head on the south. So
Yeah,
I am
yeah.
slightly confused in this aspect.
Yeah. Basically, it is the east, and that same thing applies to the east and the west. It's like people sleeping with a head to the east is preferred than to the west. It's like better because the body being positioned in that particular way, and because the human body has 70% water fluids, so that makes a lot of effect. If we consider the tides, they are again because of the magnetic pull only we have the high and the low tides, no? So similarly, that affects our body also. So that is why, these doshas are created. A certain positioning we just don't don't take care of.
His question is very relevant because nowadays still in our villages people say that if you want to sleep, अगर सोना है तो आप साउथ और इसके हिसाब से सो जाइए. बट इन सर ने जैसे बताया कि पर्टिकुलरली जो वैद्य थे तो वो ये ईस्ट और इसके बारे में कहते थे क्योंकि उसका इम्पैक्ट बॉडी हेल्थ के लिए बहुत अच्छा होता था. बट ये वो उस समय आता है जब हमारे शरीर में अगर कोई दोष निर्माण होता है तो उसको ये करने के लिए. बट इन जनरल जैसा आपने कहा वो भी ठीक है. बट आफ्टर बिकम इल और डिसीजेस देन यू मस्ट यूज दिस ईस्ट एंड वेस्ट. या
Okay.
या
Thank you.
Most welcome, sir. Yeah, Radhika Chitale ma'am, you want to ask anything because you raised the hand. Radhika Chitale ma'am. राधिका जी आप कुछ पूछना चाहते हैं? नहीं, ओके. पुरातनम जी कुछ पूछना है आपको? नहीं, ओके, ठीक है. वर्षाली मैडम, you want to ask anything more?
Yeah. I just wanted to remind about the gumboots of sun. Maybe whenever we get time in next days, we can talk about it.
I'll just mention one thing here right now, that it was mentioned by one of my teachers. Like, she's a very renowned personality.
But there
and
is references. There is differences.
Yeah.
In some of the south temples also, we can see like these gumboots. In our Ajanta also, there is one cave, and in that painting there is one gumboot. वहां पे भी है जिक्र और ये दिखाया गया है, एंड इट्स 5th century painting. So we can see it in our temples or in our these paintings also.
And Sun Konark temple also we have sun gumboots, no?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
And there are many other also. अगर हम उसके बारे में ही जिक्र करना चाहेंगे तो उसके रेफरेंसेस हम दे सकेंगे. यस,
Yeah,
चेतन
yeah.
नायक
Thank-
जी,
thank
नायक
you.
जी कुछ सवाल था. यस, विक्रम भारद्वाज सर. या
सर एक और क्वेश्चन राइज हुआ. अभी आपने कहा कि राम लगभग 7 फीट से ऊपर थे, बुद्धा, महावीर, ऋषभदेव की वो फर्दर फीट की मेजरमेंट, क्या उस इंस्टांस में हम फीट को ही
ये फीट आज का वर्ड हम यूज कर रहे हैं, बट उस समय के शिलालेखों की और इसकी भाषा जो है, या उसके लिए जो बताया, जैसे गुफा का ये दिया है, सो उनके हाइट की जितनी गुफा को निर्माण किया गया था, जैसे हमारे नासिक के पांडव लेनी जिसको कहते हैं, या त्रिरश्मि बुद्ध लेनी ऐसा उसको कहते हैं, तो वहां पर इस तरह के मेजरमेंट दिए, और जब हम उसको आज के तारीख में उस मेजरमेंट को ये करते हैं, तब हम ये फीट वर्ड यूज करते हैं, बट उस समय तो हस्त, मात्रा या निर्वर्तने, ये जिस तरह के जो परिमाण है वो यूज किए जाते थे. एक हमारा सेशन होगा जिसमें इसके बारे में और डिटेल होंगे.
टाइम पे जो
सर-
वेट की मेजरमेंट की जाती थी उसमें तोला, माशा, शेर की बात होती थी.
ये तो वजन की बात है. हाँ, यस, वजन की बात है.
तो ये चेंज हो गया है. वैसे ही मतलब अर्ली इंस्टांस में
यस,
हाइट के लिए नाउ वी आर यूजिंग इट विद फीट.
यस, वेरी ट्रू. या
Clarified. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Sir, all
Yeah.
these tall people were Ajanubahu?
नॉट लाइक सेट, बट हाँ, मान्यता ये है कि ऐसा सभी इसमें बताया गया है कि कैसे चक्रवर्ती सम्राट का क्या लक्षण है, तो उसमें ये फर्स्ट लाइन आता है कि आजानुबाहु. सो ये वर्ड यूज किया गया है. सही बात है. चेतना नायक जी, यू वांट टू आस्क एनीथिंग? चेतना नायक जी, आपकी आवाज नहीं आ रही है. साउंड आपकी आवाज नहीं आ रही है.
Okay, I will ask another time.
Now it's okay. Yeah, please.
No, I will ask the question. No, ma'am said we will have a session on measurements. Yeah, in one of the sessions, there will be. It's like okay. So I think my doubt will get clarified then.
It's okay. Yeah, it's okay.
Thank you.
Yes, yeah, most
Welcome.
welcome. Yeah, Radhika Chitre ma'am. Yes,
Hello.
please.
Thank you, ma'am, for your wonderful lecture. I wanted to ask, you mentioned about Mayasur. Is
Yes.
he the one who is from Mexico with the Mayan civilization?
It is. There are some references which believe it is that way. That because, like, you know, South is considered as this Patal. So, like, Antarctica and that region is considered as Yamalok. And so, like, Mexico being in the southern hemisphere, that I have read this, like, come across this, you know, that Mayasura is that the Mayan that region. So yeah, because he was made the king of a part of this Patal Lok.
Yes, because we
Yeah.
have visited Mayans, Mexico, and we have seen all those pyramids over there, which belongs to Mayan civilization. But the way the civilization existed, it was a bit very, I mean, we found it very scary as compared to the one which we have in the Sanatan in India, ancient India, I mean. So
Yeah, then-
I was a bit confused about this.
That could be because of the geography and the climate over there. So because structures are built conducive to the atmosphere, no, and like how the lifestyle of the people is. So probably that could be the reason that the structures are different.
Okay.
Scholars like the Bhandarkar, R.G. Bhandarkar ji mentioned here, when we called as the Lokas, Saptaloka. So he mentioned in one of his book, Saptaloka means like the Saptakhanda. तो अभी जैसे आपने कहा कि माया लोक या पाताल लोक, ये जो है तो मैक्सिको, तो ये जो है हम लोकों के इसमें, वो खंड के इसमें जब बात करते हैं तो ये सोचने लायक है. जैसे हमारे यहाँ पर भी इंडियन सब कॉन्टिनेंट की जब हम बात करते हैं, जम्बू द्वीप है, भरतखंड है, तो उसमें भी ये होता है कि पूर्व जो है द्रविड़ और इसमें अलग अलग उसको यूज किया गया है. सो एवरीवेयर द कल्चर्स में हमेशा एक टर्म यूज करता हूँ, अपनी अपनी जगह पर जो है वो डेवलप हो रहे थे। बस ये हो सकता है कुछ लोग कुछ इसमें पहले डेवलप हो गए और कुछ लोग किसी इसमें बाद में डेवलप हो गए, बस इतना ही डिफरेंस होता है। बट डेवलपमेंट कुछ जगह पर और वो उनके अपने नीड्स के हिसाब से डेवलपमेंट जो है हम देखते हैं।
Okay, all right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So now with the kind permission of all of you, and I am very sorry मैडम, मुझे क्षमा कर दीजिए, बहुत समय हो गया है, तो आप सभी के परमिशन से आज का हमारा सेशन जो है यहाँ हम रोकते हैं। So thank you, thanks a lot and good night to all.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, madam.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night, good night.